I greet everyone here today, this morning, this evening, this afternoon. As I've been introduced, my name is Galdys Kamazanyu. I am the head of the Uganda Wildlife Court, but also founder of Help African Animals, a nonprofit that is based here in Uganda, that is doing a lot of work to increase knowledge about wildlife crime, wildlife alone, the laws protecting wildlife, and penalties that are involved in committing wildlife crime, but also looking at the kind of cases we are having in Uganda, looking at how long they take in the court system, going out to look for interventions that can help us curb the crime, but also working hard to involve the community, because we believe we can't claim to conserve if we don't involve the true people that live with wildlife. In Uganda, our people actually live with wildlife, and they bear all the burdens of living with wildlife, and they're fully responsible for having it survive or not actually survive. Okay, so this evening I am happy to be talking about a topic that is so close to my heart, a topic that has to do with curbing wildlife crime, and in a way telling my story as a Ugandan judge. And I'll have a short outline, and I'll have to talk about something to do with who I am, why wildlife crime became my passion, wildlife crime itself, its link with crimes against humans, the role of courts, the Uganda Wildlife Court, achievements and challenges that we have had over time. So Galdys was born and raised in a rural area in one of the in one of the districts in Uganda. And growing up as a child, I did actually interact with a lot of wildlife. My village had so many animals. It had forests, so we had a lot of species in the forest, in the bushes. So when I went to collect firewood in the forest, I saw animals. When I went to fetch water from the wells from the lake that was so close to my parents' home, I saw a lot of wildlife. I was raised by both parents, but I want to tell you that growing up as a child, I noticed that my mother did care too much about all creation. My mother never allowed us to eat any animal that was raised in our home. She had a lot of attachment to the animals there, the chickens, the cows, the goats, the everything. She wouldn't want, like, she the way I saw her as a child, she felt like everything and every individual in the home, whether human or not human, were all the same, and we were part of the same home, and she felt we were one family. So she never ever wanted any chicken, any cow, any goat, any sheep, anything to be slaughtered. I noticed that she didn't eat chicken egg, and up to now she doesn't eat chicken egg, because she strongly believes there's a baby in there. She shouldn't be eating that chicken. And she didn't like slaughtering animals, be it wild animals. She struggled too much. Many times she didn't eat meat. And I kept wondering, but when I grew up, I noticed she attached a lot to animals, to wild animals, and perhaps she had a feeling, and she has a feeling, because she's still alive, that they were just like us. She didn't like cutting down trees, young trees. She would feel as if you're cutting the young one of somebody and destroying, and that's what I thought as a child. But now as a grown up, I noticed that she was actually doing her best to conserve nature. Unfortunately, I was raised in a hunting or call it poaching community. The rural area where I grew up was and is a conservation area, a community wildlife conservation area where humans and wildlife coexist. So you have humans who have bought their pieces of land, and they are their pieces of land, but we have animals surviving there, and they are not supposed to hunt them. But as a child, I remember very well, we had a lot of hunting in my village. Men running after animals with nets and spears and all that. I saw so many skins in my relatives' homes, skins of wild animals. Many people use them for so many different things, for sleeping on, for sitting, for decoration, for many, many, many things. Growing up as a child, I went to school, but I went to my advanced level of school. I went to one of the top universities in the country, but unfortunately where wildlife law was not taught. So I studied and qualified as a lawyer who was only taught to defend humans, make sure they were not cheated, they were not hurt, not injured by others, and ensure that justice is done to them as humans. And that's a lawyer that graduated from law school. So in 2009, I was appointed as a magistrate grade 1. That's how I now start my life at the bench. And before I was transferred to the wildlife court, I was actually able to work for 6 years in 3 courts, where I adjudicated over other cases. I don't recall ever handling a case that had to do with an animal, with the environment, with nature. No, they all had to do with humans. It was either land transaction, commercial, civil claim, or family and children, but nothing to do with animals or wildlife or the environment. And in 2016, I and 2 other judicial officers were tasked to start the Uganda Wildlife Court. So I was involved into visiting stakeholders, engaging them into finding out why they wanted a special court to do wildlife cases. And these were stakeholders who are charged with the duty to conserve. For example, the Uganda Wildlife Authority, the National Forestry Authority, who are in charge of the forests in the country, and the Uganda Wildlife Authority in charge of the animals in the wild, the Fish Protection Unit, the National Environment Authority that are in charge of the environment. So to find out what their challenges were in the other courts where all the cases had been adjudicated, and then to come back and advise the Uganda judiciary on what we had come up with from the stakeholders, and how best we could have the court set up and run properly. So that was in 2016, and the court was launched in 2017. I was there. And in 2020, I challenged myself from hearing those cases. Every day I had a case, I actually realized how much I wasn't a reasonable Ugandan. For example, I would, whenever I had the experts testify, and then they are telling me about these species, they're talking about the animals whom I thought were too many in the wild, and then they're telling me how many of them are actually being pushed to extinction, the others that have actually gone into extinction, and then the other risks involved in the crime relating to wildlife. And then I sat back and I was like, oh my God, I thought for the last 6 years, I had been doing a great job. I had helped a lot of people. I had served my country. And yet this is, a field that I had never thought about, and I didn't know all this was happening around me. And that's how I discovered that, oh, you know what? I think I have a role to play. So in 2020, I challenged myself to pursue an LLM in animal law, which I went and did. And actually, I started it in 2019 in Lewis and Clark Law School in Portland, Oregon in the US. So I got the degree in 2020, and sitting in a class of animal law, now that one opened up my mind too much. It gave me a lot of opportunities. It gave me a chance to discover who I was, what I was capable of doing, what I could do to especially substantially continue to contribute to conservation in my country, in Africa, but also conserving the world's wildlife, because wildlife knows no border, sleeps here in Uganda today, has lunch in Kenya, and has lunch in Tanzania. So they're all over. Even the attempts we do to do the population censuses, and we say, oh, Uganda has so many elephants. So I really think sometimes we are counting elephants from elsewhere. But anyhow, when they are on the soils of Uganda, we are counting them as those ones that are in Uganda. So that course actually shaped me so much, and I got more ideas of how I could actually play a better role in conservation. In 2020, when I returned, I was awarded a counter poaching and trafficking award by the government of Uganda in recognition of my outstanding contribution to conservation, because I had, from the time the court started, I was there, not even as the in charge, but later I was promoted to head it. And especially when I came back from Lewis and Clark Law School with the LLM in animal law, which I hold alone in the judiciary. There's no other judicial officer with that degree. So I actually became the most, the one who was able to head the court. And so they wouldn't prefer to have anyone but me. And so in 2023, again, I was awarded another award by Rotary Uganda, who also thought I had done a great job in protecting wildlife and human rights. As I said earlier, I am a founder of Help African Animals. This is a 501c3 nonprofit. It's a tax-exempt nonprofit that is doing work here in Uganda. And again, this idea to have the nonprofit comes when I am at the Lewis and Clark Law School pursuing the LLM in animal law. And I sat in the class, and all the time I looked at myself and said, oh, Gladys, so you're going back to Uganda, you have already done a great job, but there's more that you have to do. And yes, look, so how about one day if you won't be able to try those cases that are your passion, you won't be able to be in the court. For example, you're promoted to another level where you can't be there, but also as a judge, you can't work in one court for forever. It's not possible. You still, after some time, have to go and serve anywhere else in the country. So I kept asking myself, so how will I continue to help the animals, to help wildlife, to make sure we are safe? How will I? And then the idea comes and say, you know what, I think you can have a nonprofit. Maybe you can start it, and then to be there to go on. People will come and work. I don't need to be there, but at least seeing it grow, seeing it do a great job, that would make me very, very happy. And that it was my brainchild, but it's doing some work to save life. And for me, from my stay and work at the court, I realized that much of the crime is actually committed out of ignorance, especially for the local people in Uganda. Many of them do not know that they are committing crime. They have grown up, using the resources illegally, but they don't know that they are actually committing crime. And then they come to court and they learn for the first time that they actually committed crime, or some of them are pushed by poverty to commit crime. Some of them are committing crime, unknowingly, because they've been promised some money, and then the kingpin said, go and bring me this, and then they go into the protected area, go and get us the contraband. As they're delivering it, they're the ones who are arrested. So I realized that there was a need to actually increase knowledge, and also because I got to know that all the time we have, for example, a seizure, of elephant ivory, a seizure of pangolin scales, a seizure of rhino horn, whatever the case may be. All the time, it is too late. It is too late because life has been lost. When you recover or you seize parts of an animal, the animal is long gone. We can't have that life back. Long gone totally with all the benefits of that animal in the ecosystem. If it's a forest, the forest is already down, gone. The ecosystem is altered, unaltered for forever. You can't have it back. So, and then when I looked at the humans also, when, for example, a human being, say, commits crime out of ignorance, and they are pushed in prison, and their life will never be the same. Their families will never be the same, because usually our people here, especially the men, have more children in Africa. Our men have more children. So imagine you're sending in prison one poacher who is a father of 10. 10 whom he is fully responsible for, and he's the sole breadwinner, and then we are incarcerating them. It means for me that in a way, we are creating 10 more poachers. That is what it would mean for me. Because if daddy is not around, children have been left home. They don't have a chance to go to school to become a lawyer like me. They don't have a chance to even get food on their plate without committing crime, crime against the wildlife. And yet the wildlife is still around them. When they wake up in the morning, they are there. And then they are hungry. So it means they will instead be tempted to go into the protected areas, get the animals to eat, cut down the trees to get money, maybe, to have other basic needs. So for me, I thought by having a nonprofit that is concentrating on saving life of humans and life of animals, by increasing knowledge about the crime, increasing knowledge about other interventions that we can have to stop people from committing crime, making them know that actually wildlife has value. Many of them think wildlife is just there and it's a problem. They're killing us, they're killing our children, they're killing our livestock, they're raiding our crops, which they usually do actually. So they look at them as, problems, and they wouldn't care. Anyone coming to take away the problem, to kill the problem, they would actually welcome them. And we have had some of those cases. People coming from one region, camping another on someone's land, villagers are all looking and owners of the land are looking. They keep hunting and kill indiscriminately. They kill all the animals in the area and take them away. And then the residents there are celebrating, hoping that, the problem has been taken away. But in a way, we are losing instead too much. And they are losing, because they should actually be benefiting from the wildlife by keeping them on their land. So again, I already said I had the Uganda Wildlife Court. When later, when I was elevated to Chief Magistrate, I was tasked to head the court. And so how does wildlife crime become my passion? As I said, my background exposed me as a child to wildlife at a tender age. I saw them growing up. So many animals, different animals, big ones, hippos, small ones, the Uganda cobs, and everything. There were very, very many. When I went to fetch water, they would cross. We fear them, but you'd see them crossing and they're going. But now, after some years, when I grew up, I would go home. And when I go home, I don't see the animals. All the forests where we used to collect the firewood are no longer there. The animals have gone. Even the water has almost gone like far away from where it used to be. Everything is running away. Yeah, many of them were hunted down, but others died off because they have nowhere to be anymore. Humans have settled everywhere. When I go home and I see that, I realize, there's a problem. There's a problem. I don't see the animals I grew up seeing. I don't see them at all. The big trees, the beautiful, birds that I used to see, the music of the birds and everything, it has all gone. Wherever you see a garden, you see a house, you see everything has been put down. So I keep asking myself, so after so many years, what will be happening? I think I have a role to play. But also my involvement in establishing the Uganda Wildlife Court and basically my work at the court shaped me. It opened me to this world of wildlife, the crime involved, the consequences, to challenge myself, to get to wake up, realize how much I have a role to play as a judicial officer, having an opportunity to preside over cases that never ever found themselves on top of my agenda and on top of any judicial officer's agenda, because they were tried originally under all courts around the country. And that meant that they would come up together with other cases where humans are the complainants. And remember, by their nature, our cases of wildlife don't have a complainant. They don't have a victim who will come and say, it's me who was injured. They don't have a relative following up to say, it was my father, it was my mother, it was my husband that was murdered. So they don't have a chance to be, even when they're there and they're the victims, to be in the courtroom. They'll not have a chance to come. So by human nature, judicial officers would find themselves actually trying to prioritize cases where humans are the victims, because usually they are there. They're following up on their cases. They will be there crying, still hurting if they've been injured, they've lost their beloved, relatives. They will not be happy, so you want to help them. So I got a chance to now have an opportunity to ensure that these cases are also heard, especially expeditiously. But also my education, especially in my LLM in animal law, it opened me to so much knowledge and discovering so much that was happening even around me here in Uganda. It was happening in the continent where I am, but also in the whole world. And I discovered that, I have a role to play. The knowledge of so many species, and as I said, that have been lost, the ones we are losing. Even drawing an example from my own village, from the rural area where I was brought up, going home and I can no longer see animals. They have all gone away. They have all died. And I kept saying, oh no. Now, how about my own children, my great-grandchildren? Will they find anything here? They'll not find anything if I don't play a role. The knowledge of the value. Uganda gets so much from wildlife. The biggest percentage of our GDP. Some of it comes from tourism. And tourism is wildlife based. We have many people coming into Uganda to just see the young. They're not killing them, but they're seeing and they're paying money. So my country gets a lot of money. That value, the extrinsic value, but also the intrinsic value, that value that we don't touch, the one that we don't see, the beauty alone, but also the interconnectedness of the crime relating to wildlife and the crime relating to humans. The fact that those who commit crimes against humans are likely to commit the ones against animals, and actually vice versa. Knowing that when we don't have this crime, we actually have more peace. That's a value for me. But also knowing that there's so much when the wildlife is alive, we also have better lives as human beings. We are able to live better. Then it means we are so connected. When you take away the wildlife, we are also affected. So I discovered that I have a role to play because wildlife actually has a lot of value. And also, I want to tell you that my turning point was my sight, seeing a human being in the wild, moving with a rhino at a sanctuary in Uganda. Uganda lost all her rhinos in the 1980s. We had a war here, which took some time, and people hunted down rhinos because our national parks became battlegrounds. People killed the rhinos. Rhinos went to extinction. We lost all of them to zero. Now, in the 1990s, we started breeding them at Ziwa Rhino Sanctuary. At that sanctuary, the sanctuary is fenced. It's big. It's a wild, place. But you have in the wild human beings 24/7 walking with a rhino, following the rhino. When the rhino is feeding, he will stop somewhere and let the rhino feed. When the rhino is moving, he's also moving. Rain, sunshine, day, night. Someone is watching over a rhino. Why? Because when they go away, another human may come and poach the rhino. Oh, I asked myself, how can this be? How should this be going on? And yet we actually don't know that this is not good. When I am at home sleeping, a human being is guarding a rhino for my benefit. And I said, no, I need to now play my role much better. So I choose to speak on behalf of wildlife, on behalf of nature, to speak not basically only with my word of mouth, but to speak through the work that I do, the decisions I take on a daily basis. I choose to make them speak very, very loudly for the wildlife. And so that is what now makes me the Galdys that we see today. Now going to wildlife crime. Wildlife crime is that the trade, the exploitation, possession, it could be killing of animals or plants that is not in line with the law. And this one is actually a very serious problem, although it wasn't previously, but even today, for some people, it's not yet very serious. They consider it as minor. I've seen people say, no, humans should not suffer because of wildlife, because of animals, because of trees and all that. So they think it's not serious enough, but actually it's very, very serious. It has endangered and continues to endanger many of the species of wildlife, including the iconic African mammals that we know very well, big ones like the elephants, the rhinos, but also the small ones, for example, the pangolin, which is believed to be the most trafficked mammal. At the court where I work, we have so many exhibits of pangolin skins and scales, and all the time they come in, I keep asking myself, oh my God, how many little, humble, beautiful, pangolins were slaughtered to get all this? A pangolin is very small. So we have all these going because of this very serious problem that to some people is not yet considered to be serious. This crime is actually worldwide. It's a big industry, and that's why we have so many, people wanting to participate in. And it's booming. It never stops, but also it devastates the wildlife. It has depleted many of the species of fauna and flora. Usually, this crime is motivated by the profit that is involved in it. It's a financial crime many times, especially the illegal wildlife trade. People engage in it because they want to get money, they want to get rich, and therefore they go in. The motivation is usually the financial benefit that accrues from it. And it is believed to be the fourth largest illegal trade in the world, coming after firearms, drugs, and human trafficking. And actually, that crime, wildlife crime, is linked to the other crimes. For example, usually those who traffic, say, in wildlife will have firearms, because you want to imagine to be able to kill, for example, wild animal, those big ones in the national parks, one needs a firearm. It is linked to drugs, trafficking in drugs. It is common to arrest a trafficker with not just, say, illegal wildlife products, but also with firearms, also with drugs, with counterfeit notes and all that. So those crimes are interconnected. Unfortunately, wildlife crime is rising. It's rising in the whole world. It is increasing, and that is not good. But the crime that we see reported, a few cases that we are having reported at the police, having at the court, those are very, very few. Most of the crime is not reported. It's not known. Even when it's known, some of it is taken to be too late to be in the courtroom for people to suffer for it. It's not investigated, and therefore most of it is not prosecuted. But also, sometimes what is stopping this from happening is because the crime is usually hidden. You won't find a place where people will be trading in ivory, for example. They will be hidden, they will be disguised. There's a lot of concealment when these contrabands are being moved from one place to another. So most of the crime is not noticed. And usually those who are involved in the crime are very, very smart. They are all over. The network is big. They plan better than we do. They coordinate better than we do. They advance every day in their dealings. They are very, very fast. That's why many times they are not caught. And for my country alone, Uganda is mainly a source country. Source country in the sense that this is where traffickers will come, just like all African countries, to get the illicit wildlife products. Because the animals are there, the wildlife is in abundance, they'll come to take, to kill, and take away the species. But also, recently it has also turned into something else. It is believed to be an important route for the illicit wildlife products. Our airports, our borders have been used to have these products come in and also leave the country. There's evidence of partial processing of illicit wildlife products. I have personally seen a case where exhibits have been tendered in court and the ivory is partially processed, partially shaped into shapes. So they have been chopped, and which means there could be a place where partial processing, packaging, preparing the contrabands to leave the country is being done. So they go through the international airport, they go through the borders to other, destinations. And this hasn't been very good for us. In 2013, Uganda emerged as a wildlife trafficking risk country at CITES, and this wasn't good for us because of the so much, illicit wildlife products going through Uganda. It wasn't a good position for us to hold, and unfortunately, we remained there for some years until we were cleared. As I said, there is evidence of organized criminals operating in Uganda who are responsible for movement of products, wildlife products. Even in Africa, we have had a few cases where some traffickers arrested here are linked to illicit wildlife product cases in other countries. For example, in 2019, we had one Mwazo Kuroma being transferred. I don't want to call it an extradition because that particular person was not a Ugandan national. We had arrested him for crimes here. He had been charged with unlawful possession of elephant ivory and money laundering. But then in the US, he was also needed there for similar crimes. So because our High Court granted him bail here, the US came here and asked Uganda to release him to them, and he was taken. And I also heard that he had some other coaches that he was with who were also needed in Kenya and I think other African countries. So these, we've seen these kind of elements here. In Uganda, species that are usually in the courtroom, that usually are seized, are elephant ivory, we have rhino horn. Even when we don't have rhinos in our wild, the 31 or 32 individuals we have in the rhino sanctuary are all safe. They haven't died. But we have rhino horn being seized in the country, coming in. It means it is coming from elsewhere. We have pangolin scales, a lot of pangolin scales. Hippo teeth, oh my God, too many. But also, we have people arrested with live pangolins. I keep wondering if they at all know where these live pangolins would end. So it is serious. And then we have timber harvested from even trees that are not in Uganda and those that are extinct in Uganda. Some of it is seized here. Now, in Uganda, poaching or illegal harvest of wildlife resources is primarily for household consumption. So people will go to kill the wildlife to eat because they are hungry. But also there are people, there are communities that have lived and depended on resources around them. So they believe they're entitled to consuming. They're not aware that these resources are actually protected. So many of them will go to kill to eat. Many of them are poor. They can't afford to live on other means, so they want to go to kill to eat. Sometimes what is poached is sold to acquire other basic needs, for example, sugar and other foodstuffs. So a little portion will be sold to get money for other types of food. But what is very bad, this is not just bad for Uganda, but for Africa. Usually the poor pay more for wildlife crime. How? The poor are the ones who are currently used in the illegal wildlife trade. They are used sometimes unknowingly. They don't know that they are committing crime because they live with the wildlife in the same ecosystem. So when they are asked to go, for example, to bring a pangolin, they know where to find a pangolin. They know they can go into the bush near their houses and come back with a pangolin. You can get the scales. They know where the elephant is. They know where to find the lions. So they will do anything, especially if they've been promised some little money, because many of them are poor. They will go to get the wildlife species, get money, and usually it's very little money that they've been promised, and they end up being the ones arrested and incarcerated. But also the poor pay more because poor people in rural areas benefit a lot from the resources around them. They can use some of them legally. And many times, for example, people who are bordering national parks, collections which are done in the park, 20% of it is remitted, is given to the districts bordering the national parks. And the money is used to put schools, put hospitals, and do many things for the people. So if crime goes on, it means they're losing out on the resources. And therefore, the benefits that would accrue from the wildlife will not actually be got. Now, do courts have a role to play? The judiciary is one of the key stakeholders, the enforcement of wildlife laws, in the protection of the environment, but also in combating wildlife crime. For us here in Uganda, that role is constitutional. Our Article 126 provides for exercise of judicial power. It says that judicial power is derived from the people. It shall be exercised by courts established in the Constitution in the name of the people, but in conformity with the law. So it means if we derive judicial power from the people, whatever we do should be good for the people. And now this mandate is intended to ensure that justice is done to all. Justice be done to all is one of the principles under Article 126 that courts are mandated to enforce while adjudicating over cases, to ensure that justice is done to all. And good thing is that justice to all is actually the vision of the Uganda judiciary. And over time, the Uganda judiciary has come up with strategies intended to ensure that justice is done to the people. But for me, I believe justice done to all actually does include to all, meaning even the animals, even the wildlife. The wildlife expects better from people. They expect, I strongly believe, they expect the laws of the land to also guard them, to protect them, protect their rights, to keep them alive. Yeah, so justice to all should include them. And therefore, the innovations the judiciary has come up with over time have included the establishment of the sorry, this is supposed to be elsewhere. The establishment of Africa's only specialized wildlife court, which court, as I say, it's believed to be the only court in Africa where judicial officers have been committed to hearing no other cases but wildlife cases. Those cases that used to not be prioritized, they used to not find themselves on top of the agenda of court. Cases that perhaps would be called after court, say, is tired, cases which would be, say, forgotten because of their nature that I already explained. Yeah, so in Uganda, we have a chance for now to have these cases in one house, in the courtroom, on a day-to-day basis, heard and adjudicated properly without delay for the first time. Now, this court, as I said, the idea to have it started in 2016, and this saw its final launch in 2017. It's made operational by directions of 2016 that were signed by the Chief Justice of the Republic of Uganda. And it's established and given, it's established because of the stakeholders' outcry. They used to come and complain that cases were not being prioritized. The cases were not heard in the courts. They took too long in the system. They complained that when we eventually had them, we imposed penalties that did not suit the crimes that had been committed. And we made it hard for them to even be able to predict what would, for example, happen to their cases. And the cost of prosecuting wildlife cases became too high, higher than the value, than the benefit that accrued at the end of the day after the case was concluded. For example, if they took too long following up on a case, too many years, and then eventually after so many years, the case is determined, and for example, the convict is sentenced to, say, a caution, or sentenced to, say, a little fine of below $10, which they paid and never felt the pinch of being, punished. It meant that the stakeholders would put in so much to investigate, to even affect arrests, follow up on the cases whenever they came up in court for so long. And yet, if that is the penalty that would be given at the end of the day, the benefit would actually be minimal or zero completely. And this court, therefore, was established to enhance the efficiency of the criminal justice system, to ensure that cases were expedited, that the cases were heard efficiently, to bring up some order in how we handled the cases, some uniformity in how we handled, to not have one judicial officer determine a case and give a given penalty, and another in another district gives their totally different penalty, yet to bring out some uniformity, some consistency, but also to cut down the costs of prosecuting cases relating to wildlife. The court has unlimited territorial jurisdiction in Uganda. It is based in Kampala, but trying cases of wildlife that are committed everywhere in Uganda. So it has a very big jurisdiction. Since we started in 2017, we have had over 2,000 cases wildlife registered at the court. Now, some of the common offenses that we have tried and continue to try include unlawful possession of protected species. It means one possesses wildlife species, but without authority. Now, these sacks you see are not sacks of rubbish. Those are actually scales of little pangolins. You want to ask yourself how many pangolins were slaughtered to get that seizure. That was one single seizure of over 460 kilograms of pangolins. So in one seizure, one case, you have those. So many pangolins then were slaughtered to get them. And on this other side, those are skins of pangolins again. Humans are arrested with those skins. I can't tell what they do with them for sure. People have a lot of beliefs in the pangolins and their meat and scales, so they die for just that. Unlawful possession also, we have had cases, a lot of cases involving tusks of elephant ivory. And as I said, to get those, not usually, but all the time, an elephant will have died. So those are not cow horns, they are elephant tusks. And we have these all the time seized and tendered in court. This is disgusting, but forgive me. So we have cases relating to killing of protected wildlife. That photo, those are not sticks, they are legs of actually animals. That is one hunt, one kill. And you have all those legs. So many individuals were slaughtered in that hunt, and all of them were taken away from the ecosystem, just like that. These carcasses, you look at them and you imagine how painful the animals die. They're, cut alive, slaughtered alive. It's not nice. Yeah, but that is it. So we have a lot of cases involving engaging into, activities, fishing without licenses, use of illegal fishing gears, illegal boats on the waters of Uganda, possession of immature fish, or people go into the water to take out baby fish. Those are too many individuals who would actually give Uganda a lot of money if they were left to grow, who would give good food to the people of Uganda, but people will go in and get them young, get them babies, and who enjoys that fish? I doubt anyone does enjoy them. Now, these individuals on the right have monofilament nets. Those are deadly nets which don't decompose. Many times when they're being chased, fishermen will let them go and they become ghost nets. They continue to kill fish. They don't decompose. They are believed to be having something like electricity that shocks the fish and kills them. They are consumed by fish. I guess the fish will die, but also they will kill other aquatic lives who are not fish, so cause a lot of damage in the waters. We have cases of cutting forest produce in our central reserves. People go in and cut down trees, and the trees will go down with all their benefits. You can imagine how the ecosystem is altered when you have all those down in just one incident. all the biodiversity is gone once and for all, because it can't be got back. Even if we attempt to plant trees, other trees, we can't exactly plant the actual trees. Now, over time, we have had achievements since we established the court. As I said, we have for the first time been able to prioritize our wildlife cases, because all we are dealing with are wildlife cases. There is no competition. And the competition, I mean, where cases that have victims, complainants who are human beings, would find themselves actually prioritized, and the poor animal cases who have no one following, no individual claiming to be victim, would not be given priority. Now we have them for the first time only, and they're all the same, all of them serious. All crimes relating to wildlife are serious. So I personally take all the cases very, very serious, because they have the same consequences. Yeah, so we have had, I told you that we had complaints or penalties that we are giving that were not suiting the crimes that would be committed. Now, for the first time, we have had enhanced penalties. Penalties that have included a life imprisonment term that was imposed to a habitual offender who was an ivory trafficker last year, October 2022. And that came after our act was repealed in 2019 to introduce deterrent penalties, including a sentence of life imprisonment. I don't know of any country that has life imprisonment in Africa. Uganda has life imprisonment, and we have already had one sentence of life imprisonment imposed. We have timely delivery of verdicts because the cases are heard usually whenever it is possible on a day-to-day basis, because we have witnesses coming from all over the country. When they come, when they are invited to court to testify, court must be ready to take them on. The prosecution must be ready to proceed, the defense should be ready to proceed, and the judicial officer should be ready to proceed. And after hearing the case, we do deliver our verdicts on time. The court has increased coordination, cooperation, that should be cooperation and communication among key stakeholders. So for us now, for the first time, it's very easy to communicate to any player. Coordination is good already. It's very easy to know how one agency is doing, the challenges they are facing. If you need to find out on anything, you will get to find out. And it has helped us to run very well. Our case management has improved because we have all our cases in one house, and we're able to manage them. But also we have had the public faith in the criminal justice system increase. So in cases to do with wildlife, at least people trust that justice will be done because of the court. They see the cases being heard, they see the cases being concluded, they have faith that justice will be done. But the court has helped us so much to reduce case backlog because we fast track the cases. There are no people seated in prisons waiting too long to be tried. They are charged with cases of wildlife. And we are able as well to identify repeat offenders because the cases are heard in the same house, same court. Or systems will usually tell us that, oh, this one has been here, and we'll be able to deal with them. Our prisons have, in a way, been decongested, especially with cases of wildlife. We don't have many people seated waiting for their cases to be called, to be heard, to be determined. Yeah. And then we have had a few challenges. One of the challenges has had to do with ignorance of the value of wildlife. Our people are ignorant. Some of them don't know that actually wildlife has any value. They see them as enemies. They see them as, because they are competing with them for resources, for food, for water. They're just problems because they kill their livestock, they raid the crops, they are, killing them. So it's a problem there. But then we have misunderstanding, like people not know who owns wildlife, for example. There are those who believe that wildlife has been made by God for all of us to benefit. There are those who believe wildlife is for the government of Uganda, we should just look at it. So the confusion, those who believe wildlife is made by God for us all, they want to go and use the resources just like that. But they think they are taking out their own animal that would belong to them because they are also owners. And there's generally ignorance of the law protecting wildlife. It's common for people to be charged in courts and they come and learn for the first time that their acts were actually criminal. But also there's a sort of concentration on small poachers, those who poach, those who kill to eat, to feed families, and we miss out on the actual perpetrators, especially those who are involved in illegal wildlife trade, that transnational wildlife trade. And therefore prosecutions are so many for small cases. And with small fish, I mean those who wouldn't be the actual perpetrators. For example, in the ladder trading, for example, trying the ones at the bottom, those who are used to carry the sacks of illegal wildlife products, those who are sent to kill in the parks because they were promised money, those who are sent to coordinate to look for markets. So we are still struggling to get the actual perpetrators, those ones on top, to get them, because usually they are not even in Uganda, they are based elsewhere. They use other people in the ladder to get the product. So we are working hard to look out for those. We have had a few cases, but we need to have more cases for the big fish prosecuted in court, the kingpins. We are still working hard to net them down and have them have them prosecuted. Corruption has been somehow a challenge, especially in the key players. And when it happens, we know that there will be no progress. The case will die. At whatever level it happens, it will die, and it will wash away the efforts of all other stakeholders. And corruption is also responsible for some cases not making their way actually to even the system. They will not be reported. So when it happens, this is not good at all. Political interference, a few cases of orders from above, leave that one to go. They here and there, a few though, but we are working hard and seeing how to prevent them, play it cool, but make sure we are doing our work. Insecurity, this is serious. We have, for example, lost some rangers in the battle while working hard to conserve, to protect wildlife. We have lost some investigators. We have not lost judicial officers, prosecutors yet, but the threats of where one goes after, for example, handling this big case, because the ones we are dealing with are more connected. They are so determined to go unpunished and all that. So the feel of insecurity is real. Now, to conserve wildlife, I know calls for deliberate actions. In Uganda, we took a deliberate action to contribute to conservation, to contribute as judiciary. Yeah, so it can't be an accident, but you have to set out to do it, and you go and do it. But also to conserve calls for a collective responsibility. I believe we all have a role to play to to conserve our innocent clients, innocent friends, the animals, conserve nature. So if each of us plays their role rightly, we will get there. We can conserve wildlife for the whole world. Animals, wildlife in particular, does not speak. They won't seek for justice. They want to go to the police to say, I am here, it is me that was hurt. They don't speak our language, but I strongly believe within themselves, they communicate, they listen, they know how to talk to themselves, but they don't speak what we speak. And we can speak for them. Wherever we are stationed in our work, we can speak in our decisions that we take every day. We can speak and speak so loudly for wildlife. And when we speak for wildlife, we are not just speaking for wildlife. I already said we are interconnected. When they are, we are. They're not there, we can't be there. When we are not there, they can't be there. So when we speak for them, we're also speaking for humanity. We are speaking for our own existence. We are preserving our future. And we can do that when we take deliberate actions and stand up high to be counted, stand up to be remembered as those who did the right thing. I keep asking myself, one day, if your children ask you, Gladys, and say, oh, mommy, we'd no longer see the rhinos, no longer see lions in the wild, but we hear you one time heading the wildlife court, you had a non-profit that was working hard to conserve. So where are the animals? Where is where is the wildlife? Yeah. So we can stand up, all of us, and choose to do the right thing and be counted and be remembered as those who did the right thing, to speak out, to work hard, to preserve nature. And that should be the last slide. I want to thank everyone for listening.
Thank you very much. Before I thank you, I would like to thank your mother who planted the seed for the vision that you have today, and perhaps all the parents in Africa, and all, especially the mothers who plant the seeds for, you know, appreciating wildlife and appreciating nature. So please convey that thanks on behalf of everybody here tonight. And then we would also like to thank you for being a voice for the voiceless. First of all, for the animals and nature that cannot speak on its own behalf, as you said, cannot walk to the police station and, you know, report a crime against itself. And then also, thank you for having a more broad and holistic look on the matter and starting your NGO that look at, you know, at the root cause of the problem, where you also mentioned that if you would sentence one poacher, it puts 10 other people into poverty, and the cycle of poaching just continues and continues. And thank you for also looking at the whole matter from that perspective. And then from us, we would just like to wish you, you know, all the best with this journey forward. As you mentioned tonight, this crime is linked to a whole lot of other very serious crimes, trade in arms. It's a financial crime. It's linked to the drug trade. So we wish you your own safety, first of all, and also that you will have the tenacity and the courage to continue, and so that other African countries can have the opportunity to learn from you. Time for the Q&A, and I see that Roland from Angola already has his hand up. Roland, I'm going to ask you to please unmute and go ahead and ask your question. Okay, Roland, as soon as you manage to do that, I am going to return to you. If anybody else would like to ask a question, please use the reaction tools at the bottom of the screen, or you could just wave at us. We will take note of that as well. And I see we already have some questions in the chat at the moment. And also loads of comments. I'm just scrolling to a question there. So important work, thanks. That's a comment from Anna. And how do you handle transboundary or crimes over borders? Cooperation with neighboring countries?
Okay, should I answer that first?
You're welcome. Please go for it.
Okay. So for transboundary crimes, Uganda works with other countries. Like I said earlier, for example, in 2019, we were able to give away a man called Muazo Kroma to the US. And he went and was charged there because he was believed to have, and actually he did because he pleaded guilty, and he's serving a 5 years jail term. And then he's also supposed to be bounced back to Uganda to be tried for money laundering and illegal wildlife product, possession. So yes, even for other countries that are neighboring Uganda, we do cooperate. And if there is one person that is needed anywhere in the world for crimes relating to wildlife, we will for sure work together to see them be charged there. Or the ones that are not in Uganda that are needed here, we work hard to see them. We have had cases where exhibits, for example, the ivory is not in Uganda. Maybe there's a case I was handling, the ivory had left Uganda and it had entered another country, a neighboring country. And we worked together to have them returned because they were exhibits in a case in Uganda. So yes, there's a lot of cooperation with neighboring countries, and it is doing us a great job because we believe the wildlife, they know no border. They be here today, they be the other side tomorrow. Yes.
Thank you very much for that answer. Roland, we're going to try to handle your question again. So please unmute. There we go.
Yep. Thank you. Sorry, I lost internet connection. Gladys, thank you very much for your presentation. My question is, what happens to confiscated wildlife products like ivory, pangolin? I don't know if you have a problem with lion bones. What happens once you've confiscated those wildlife products?
Oh, thank you. So, that's a complex area. I guess all African countries are struggling. So in Uganda, the Wildlife Act provides that for confiscated ivory that has come to court, after a case is concluded, we make an order handing over the ivory, not just ivory, all of them, all the illegal wildlife products to the Executive Director, Uganda Wildlife Authority. Because we don't have premises to keep these, we don't have where to store them, it's risky. So we are handing over the Uganda Wildlife Authority. They're storing. We have a lot of trophies. We have too much that we are keeping, and this is happening in every African country. Now, what is happening is that African countries still hope that one day, maybe CITES, will sit and say now we can trade, which I personally do not see happening, especially in the near future. So yeah, we are still seated with them, and I want to imagine how risky it is even. Yeah, we are storing them. We are not destroying them because our governments are not allowing destruction. They still think there is value in the products. So we are keeping them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Roland. Thanks for your question. I'm just going to refer back to the chat for a moment. Are any other African countries looking at what Uganda has done and shown an interest in doing the same? So this is just, a question related to the cross-border cooperation, but do you notice that other African countries are perhaps intentionally trying to learn from you?
A couple of countries have sent people here to benchmark already. We have had several African countries come here to benchmark with us, to sit in our court sessions, to ask us how we were able to have this kind of court. Wherever I go to speak, a week ago I was in Botswana, and everybody who heard about the existence of a wildlife court in Uganda was so surprised, and I know many of them, especially considering the many achievements that we have had a breakthrough. At least we can now prioritize these cases. Everybody is thinking of how to convince their governments to come up with such a court. Yeah, and I believe in the near future, we'll hear stories of some courts of this nature coming up.
Fantastic, thank you. Andy, you're welcome to ask your question. Let's just try and unmute you.
Done it, I'm in. Gladys, thank you so much. I have happy memories of Uganda from about 30-something years ago in the early 90s. And it's wonderful to hear your story. I found it very moving, actually, hearing your journey and the amazing work you're doing. I'm a bit reticent to ask a question to somebody who's so much more clever than I am, but I've heard that in countries like New Zealand, rivers and other natural features have been given the same rights as a human being. And I wondered if that sort of approach might provide you with an opportunity for justice for all in its widest sense. What do you think?
Thank you so much for that question, Andy. Yes, I'm also aware of some countries where, yeah, wildlife has been given some rights. Unfortunately, in Uganda, wildlife is still property. That is the legal status. It is still property. Animals are property, everything is property. So we are starting the talks to increase knowledge, to make people understand that animals have interests, they hurt like we do. They would want to have peace, they have their own mind, they have interests. So we are trying to push. This is not an easy one to talk, especially in a developing country like where I am, where people are still struggling with survival. They have no food to eat. They are still dying of diseases that can be cured. So it's not an easy one, but we will talk, and we are talking. So it's not an easy one. That's why even developing countries, many of them don't want to hear this one. But I believe one day we'll get there again. I believe.
Thank you, Gladys. There's a question. I just want to return to the chat a moment. So there's a question from Carol Preston. I am interested in why your mum was so connected to all life. Was it the way she was raised herself, or was it because she found this connection herself? Also, is she an exception, or are there other women who have this connection?
Well, I believe my mom is an exception. I haven't seen many mothers, many women do it. I do it here. We have chicken that are pets, and people ask me why keeping chicken as pets. Eat chicken. Why don't you slaughter them? But I saw it in my father's home when my mom kept chicken. She kept animals that grew very, very old, and they died of old age. So I think she was a special one. I don't know, because many times actually, mothers, we stay with children so much, we influence them a lot. They do what we do. So I want to believe my grandmother maybe did same thing. I didn't have a chance to see her long, to see my grandmother. But I strongly believe that. I think so. My mom is very old now. She's in her 80s, but still my mom doesn't want to see anything suffering. Like any animal, sometimes I feel she feels they are just like us, and I love it that way. And I believe from her, I also care, because she cared and I saw her care. So I really believe her mother cared, but not everyone is like that. We have seen people who are so cruel, women who are so cruel to animals, who don't care about how they feel. And yeah, I think it's not general. Yes.
Thank you for that. Carla Louise, please ask your question. We just need you to unmute, please.
Okay, can you understand me now?
Perfect,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Many thanks, Gladys, and many thanks also the organizer of this webinar. Your story is just amazing, inspiring, and I'm it's like it's something like a chance to understand this kind of story for a person like me. I'm Kalaris Mousse Mumbolu. I'm from Gabon, where I'm working for the National Parks Agency. I'm a biologist, but I'm also involved on I have a big engagement on the pangolin conservation. I'm also the CITES focal point for the scientific authority of Gabon. So I'm so happy to understand your experience. I have something like a question. I can summarize this question like that. What about using the forensic science tools and capacities to enforce the implementation of the law in Uganda? Is the Uganda wildlife law include the use of forensic science to enforce the implementation of law? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, so forensic science, this is a new area that many countries are trying to understand. I guess many countries are struggling with. For example, one common problem I know is that we are still struggling. Many countries are still struggling, for example, to ascertain where, for example, ivory is seized, to know where it came from. A country like Uganda, our population of elephants is still small. We have about 7,000. We don't have carcasses in our national parks of elephants being slaughtered, but we have too much ivory coming into Uganda, seized in Uganda, which is typical evidence of a lot coming in from elsewhere. Now, usually we will not know where this came from. We can't attach it to any population out there in Africa. And it's a problem. Perhaps if we had a chance to attach it to a population, say in a country in Africa, we would work together to make sure that elephants there are not slaughtered. But we don't have. But we are doing some works, at least some work to tell which species, for example, if we have recovered ivory, be able to tell that this is elephant ivory, it's not a cow horn. If it is game meat, to be able to know which actual animal. Our experts will give us reports in court to show that the meat that was recovered was actually meat of a Uganda kob, was meat of a warthog. It's not a pig, but a warthog. So we have Uganda Wildlife Authority has a laboratory which is able to do that, but we can't ascertain, we can't use our lab for now to be able to tell, for example, attach to know which species of population of elephants the tusk came from. Was it in Gambia? Was it where? So we are still having that challenge, but at least we are able to know within the species which species this part came from. What? It's a pangolin. It's a ground pangolin. It's a tree climbing pangolin. So like that. So yes, we are using some forensic science to aid enforcement.
Right, thank you very much. And then I would like to ask Julius to ask his question. Almost there.
Thank you very much, Gladys, for sharing your very rich experience and passion as far as conservation of nature and wildlife. I really appreciate your efforts. Being a fellow countryman, I'm proud of this, and I'm happy to have attended this. I paid particular attention to the challenges that the court is facing, and I just want to, if you can guide and explain more on two things that really struck me. That is corruption, and then the organized crime dynamics. So if you could briefly let us know who would you enlist as the major actors within the superstructure of organized crime dynamics in wildlife trafficking within the country? And then on corruption, how have you been able to deal with this challenge of orders from above? The orders from above, are the orders from above only within, or they transcend boundaries as well? How have you been able to overcome that? And possibly, if there's some examples, I would really be interested in. I myself, I'm a researcher in organized crime, and that's why I'm putting this before you. I'll be glad to hear more from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaka. Thank you for attending. So I will begin with orders, the political interfering. Now, these orders coming from above are usually within. It's so rare, and I don't know if it can happen that orders will come from out. Usually it's within, where our people will be asked to let go. You've arrested him, let him go. Release him to go. He's this, he's that. This is him, such orders. We have had politicians even come up to court to say, oh, those are my voters. Yes, they went into the national park and hunted. They cut down a forest reserve, but they are my people. Please release them to go. And for example, the person will show up at court and say, it is me, and they come with all their titles and introduce themselves, showing how important they are. And so, yeah, so usually what we do, we don't want the collision head on. They come and you say, no, I am powerful. Because we are judicial officers, we are really powerful. But we don't want to. Yeah, so it's usually good that we talk and understand. What I usually find out is that they are also full of ignorance. Ignorance, much as they are the ones out there leading, but they are ignorant of the crime even. They still take it to be not serious enough, deserving punishment. So that's why they follow their people. They want their people out, and they say, let people go. They are poor. They are what? Someone was caught with, say, 10 carcasses of an animal, and I keep asking, so is that a hungry man that you're following, or it's a man that was actually in business? You're following someone who had elephant ivory. Do you want to find out more? They could be linked to a network. You're following them, and the network is watching. So are they using you? So usually what we'll do will be, first of all, to raise awareness among the leaders, to tell them what is at stake, and to ask them to go actually and raise awareness out there in their villages. where they get their votes among the people that they don't want to be touched, to let them know, and also offer them alternatives. You don't want your people to poach. It means as a political leader, you should be offering some alternatives to them. Otherwise, they go to the national park. Even you as a leader, you're responsible to make sure you preserve the animals for the future of this country. Yeah, so the influence is within, not from outside. Corruption, corruption is one of the key drivers of illegal wildlife trade. Maybe without corruption, we wouldn't have the trade at the level where it is. Corruption is being used to frustrate arrests, frustrate prosecutions, adjudications of cases, to make sure that the actors go free. They use a lot of money, and usually they have the money. The money they are using is the same money they are getting from the illegal wildlife trade. Very unfair. So, and it is actually working. It is working. Now, the actors that we see usually, for example, for the wildlife crime, are the people who are who are living adjacent to the protected areas. And the crime usually will start from around, those areas. So they go into the protected areas to get the contrabands. We have the politicians, for example. Some of them, we have had a couple of them prosecuted, arrested, and some of them we have been successful in prosecuting them and imposing penalties when they are found to be guilty, imposing penalties on them. We have soldiers involved in crime, and usually they have the arms to use to give to people to go to kill the wildlife, but also using their positions because they are able to influence here and there, high-ranking police officers, so many, very many actually that we are dealing with, that are charged in court, very many, I can tell you. Yeah, so usually for them, it's because they have the power, they can use the power. Politicians have the power, they can influence, some of them have an idea of where these contrabands can be sold. They have an idea, they know they can influence movement from one point to another. So those are usually the common actors in the business. The organized crime, illegal wildlife trade, involves big networks. Big networks going all the way to many different countries. Because, for example, in Uganda, we don't have market. We don't have a price attached to many of these products. For example, the ivory, we don't know the value of ivory. We don't have a price for a kilogram of ivory here. It's not even anywhere in the world an official price, but on the black market somewhere, there's some price somewhere. The pangolin scales, the hippo teeth, we don't know their value. So those who know the value are very far away. Usually, they will not be in Uganda. If they come to Uganda, they will be in the biggest hotel in the country. They are coordinating from there, and you can't reach them. They are not near the ivory. So even when you arrest, you're arresting a different person who does not even know where this is going, does not even know sometimes what is in the package that they are carrying, but they've been paid or promised to be paid. Take this there, you're going to find a man dressed like this and that. They don't know the man, but they've been told there's a man somewhere. Yeah, and they will go. So the network is big, and usually it is concealed. You can't see it, That's why cracking through the network to get the right person takes a lot of investigation. You have to be smart, patient, to be able to get to them. So, and the network actually exists. It's live in Uganda, and usually, as I said, that network uses the people around. They use us who are in the system, that even the key players in the fight against wildlife crime. They'll penetrate through and use them to go free. The people on the borders, they'll use them and say, let this go, look away. The people have looked away and sacks have gone in. People have looked away and consignments have flown out of the country. So that's how the network is moving. And I hope I answered your question, Kaka.
Thank you very much, Gladys. Mari and Jane, I just want to ask you to be a little patient. I just want to return to the chat because there is a student that's asking a question, and I always want to bring the young people in as well. Tebogo from TUT is asking, they always say that criminal syndicates are always smarter and better equipped than the law enforcers. What has been the one thing you do to match and outsmart that? So, I think a great question. Thank you, Tebogo.
And thank you for that question. So the one thing that we do to unmatch them is what we are doing now. I want to tell you that when I was transferred to the wildlife court, which was not existing then, but to go to start it, I was living a busy court where I was very busy and I was happy doing that work. I was seeing human beings happy with what I was doing. I wondered if that was right for me to do, to go to hear cases of wildlife and the interest. And but I was involved in so many trainings. The Gladys you see here today is a product of a lot of work that has already been done. I have attended so many trainings as a participant to reach this level that you see me at. So we are doing a lot of awareness to increase knowledge, to equip people to do the work now better, to be able to appreciate, crime, to expose them to how the crime is, committed, to be able to match, to outsmart the smart wrong guys, because they are really very smart. To fight this corruption, which is a key driver, that is a great intervention. When there's no corruption among the key stakeholders, it means we won't have cases of offenders going unpunished, not arrested, not prosecuted, not punished. So yeah, we are increasing knowledge, and we are going out. For example, my organization goes out up to the community members. We strongly believe they must be involved in the fight. They are used by traffickers. The kingpins use them because they are always there. When you arrest the villagers, the rural people, and throw them in jail, the traffickers will co-opt other rural people because they are there and they are ready, they are willing to help, not even the real help or good help, but they are willing to participate because they need the money. So increasing their knowledge about the crime and how they should not participate, how much loss they incur by engaging in, they suffer in prison, the ones who are prosecuted and all that. It is helping us to make the crime undesirable. We are training our investigators to learn to go, even to run after the proceeds of the illicit wildlife trade. For example, we arrest a trafficker, we prosecute them, but also cripple them by taking away the riches that they have all the years been, deriving from the illegal wildlife trade. We take the houses, we take the monies on the accounts, so we cripple them. So we are doing all that. It's a lot, and it really calls for so much. We are not yet there. No one has gotten there yet, but we strongly believe we are on the right direction.
Thank you very much. Mari, thank you for waiting. Please go for it.
No problem. Thanks very much, Gladys, for your talk. As everyone said, it's been inspiring. And we really are encouraged by the work that you've done and setting the example for all the African countries of what they should be doing. I was just wondering if Uganda has any special laws that are assisting you in the prohibition of wildlife crimes, or are there any like specific laws that you are lobbying to try and get brought into the law books to try and assist you, and either increasing penalties and fines? And then in terms of, you know, how do your laws compare to the international laws against wildlife crime, and also laws in other African countries? And then just a comment, in South Africa, we have the Green Scorpions who assist with wildlife crime prevention and catching them, but we don't have a special court. I'm wondering if Uganda has any similar sort of organizations to the Green Scorpions. And then do you work with other international organizations like Traffic to assist you with the work that you're doing? Or are they involved with you and possibly networking to help you guys?
Thank you, Marty. So I'll start with the last one. We are actually working with so many development partners who are helping us in the fight. We have Traffic presence. Like they have done a lot of work here in Uganda. We have agencies like UNODC, who've been very supportive, Space for Giants, IFO. There are very many, I can't name them. They've been here, they've built capacity, they have facilitated Uganda Wildlife Authority in how best to conserve. They have been here, they have intervened in even amendment of the laws. They have helped us so much. Now, Uganda has laws, I'll call them special laws, because we have laws protecting different wildlife species. For example, we have the Uganda Wildlife Act of 2019, the one which introduces a penalty of life imprisonment for wildlife crime. That one is basically for animals who are wild. But also we have the Fish Act that is providing for fish. We have the National Forestry Act that is providing for central reserves, the forest reserves that are gazetted and government is in charge of. We have a law protecting the environment, the National Environment Act. That one is for the environment. So we have special laws protecting different species, different areas of the environment. And international laws have been domesticated by the national special laws. For example, CITES is domesticated in the Uganda Wildlife Act of 2019. Yeah, so that's how we are working.
Okay, thanks. Great, and all the best, and may you continue strongly. Thank you.
Thank you, Gladys. Jane, thank you so much for waiting. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, Judge Kamazanyu, I have to thank you and congratulate you on your work and your incredible vision. As a wildlife crime and a CITES prosecutor here in Canada, I wish we had your court. My question is there enough enforcement structure to keep your docket full? How full is your docket? How many cases do you hear in an average month or a year?
Can you please repeat your question?
Oh, my question is this. I'm just wondering if you have an adequate enforcement structure to keep your docket full. How many cases do you hear?
Okay. All right. Our enforcement team is on ground, although we still need a lot of work to be done. As I said, and this must be the position for every country, especially in Africa, there's too much crime, wildlife crime, that is not reported because it's not noticed, or noticed but ignored because they feel it is minor, is still existing, or not prosecuted. If it is reported at some level, the files are closed, and therefore a lot that is not punished. And sometimes the lack of a strong enforcement structure, strong in the sense of the actual manpower in being in place, strong in the sense of the manpower being good at what they are doing, being on top, because we are working hard to be on top of the game, on top of the bad guys. Yeah, so this structure is not yet very good, but they're doing a great job. I have noticed that since 2017, our caseload has increased. The number of cases we registered in 2017, in 2018, the number had increased, 2019, same story, and today, same story. We see that almost on a daily, the caseload increases. Now, that does not mean that now, after the court is established, crime is too much. No, crime was there before I was born and before you were born. Wildlife crime was actually there. But as I said, most of it was not noticed, not reported, ignored. And also, the enforcement was not there. We didn't commit people to do that, to investigate, to arrest, and make sure the bad ones go to be prosecuted. So the fact that the cases are increasing, I strongly believe that our people now know how to handle, how to identify the crime, handle the exhibits, and I've seen the quality of the cases that we are handling changing. The way they are handled today is not the way they were handled 2 years ago. I've seen that investigators are advancing, and because of the increased awareness, they are advancing in how they are handling. The enforcement is actually, they are feeding us with good work, and the cases are actually getting to be more. As I said, since 2017, we have had over 2,000 cases registered. And because we hear them on a day-to-day basis, so our rate at which we complete the cases is very, very high. When cases come, we are on them and we have to have them concluded. So yes, they're doing a great job.
Thank you very much, Jane. Does that answer your question? Would you like to add to that? Thank you very much. Gladys, I promise I'm going to only address 2 more questions in the chat, and then we're going to say goodnight. You've been busy for almost 2 hours now. There's a question from Roderick. Is it true that local communities are sometimes coerced or incentivized to join syndicates of poachers and provide information on wildlife routes to transboundary big poachers? If so, does this suggest that locals are actually against poaching but lack adequate information, or could it be a sign of disempowerment caused by the legal system? That's a loaded question.
Is it in the chat? Is that question in the chat?
It's in the chat. And the question is from Roderick Moyo. Gladys, what I would also perhaps suggest, because he's got 2 questions and they are both quite complicated. What we could do, if you don't mind, we could link you with Roderick, because it almost from the question seems like Roderick might also be a researcher. And if you don't mind, we could send those questions to you and you could correspond with Roderick.
Okay, but I will try to answer it, but I have no problem with you linking us with Roderick.
Okay.
So, it is actually true sometimes that local people, the rural people are motivated not really coerced, but they are motivated to join, poachers to poach. If they are promised money, like I said, it is common for traffickers to use the local people because they are the ones who know where to find these resources, the natural resources. They know where they live. They are easily able to access them and bring out these contraband. So they are lured into participating in the poaching. And if they had good information about the dangers, for example, of being arrested, dangers of losing wildlife, they wouldn't go into the protected areas to poach. If one knows, should I be caught? It could be life imprisonment. They have to think twice. And if they go in, and that's what I actually, for me, my heart goes out for, especially those people who commit crime out of ignorance. I would want someone to go into committing crime, knowing that should my chances run out, I am likely to be arrested and ABC might happen to me. And go in knowing that when they're arrested, they don't come and start regretting to say, oh, I didn't know. Yeah. So it's usually ignorance and failure to appreciate the value of wildlife. I don't know the value of wildlife. I don't think I benefit anything by letting pangolins stay with me, even when they are not harmful. They don't bite. They don't eat anything. They are very good individuals that we can ably live with. But if I don't know the use, the value that I get from keeping them on my land, for example, I will not keep them. Anyone come and tell me that I can get some money from providing a live pangolin or scales, temptation will be very high because the value that accrues is not known. And people want value that they touch. For example, if you're saying you're going to benefit, where is the money that I'm benefiting from keeping the wild animal on my farm, in my land, or letting them be in the park? They want to see the money, even when actually money is being paid to the districts by Uganda Wildlife Authority every year. Money is remitted to the districts, for especially districts which are bordering, protected areas. Still, people don't see that money. They don't feel. They'll go to the same hospitals where the money has been used to provide medicine, but because they don't see the medicine tagged from wildlife, they will still not know. And that lack of awareness, lack of knowledge that actually there is some form of value that accrues is actually letting them to get involved in the destruction of the wildlife.
Thank you.
I don't know if I answered more. I see a question to do with measures that you're taking to work with customary processes and traditional leadership structures. This is a very good one. In Uganda, we have strong structures in the community. These are leaders that people really respect. There's good cultures that are for conservation. For example, we have for Ugandans who are here, the Baganda tribe and other tribes that have totems. You want to ask yourself why those tribes chose to have totems, that everybody has a totem. When I have a totem, my husband won't eat my totem, my children won't eat my totem. And it means all of us are now going to work hard to protect that totem, keep that animal. And usually they are animals or things, nature. So I was talking about totems and saying that for communities or tribes in Uganda where totems are still held as important, these totems are protected by everybody who belongs to that tribe. It means if my totem is lion, I won't eat lion. My children won't eat lion. My husband won't eat lion. And all people who come from me won't eat lion. So in a way, we'll be many of us protecting the animal to make sure that this animal is tomorrow still existing for all of people, the descendants of this lion, to find, to see. And I've seen good prosecutors in court say, your worship, animal is it must be preserved. Generation that belong to a lion totem, but sorry, lions have since gone into extinction. Some says in communities actually do help to be able to continue with them.
Gladys, unfortunately,
the leadership.
you lose your connection a lot at the moment.
Oh, sure. We are doing is not yet very well involving the traditional leadership, those structures down there who are actually close to the people that are true keepers, because I believe those people are the true keepers of wildlife. They're the ones who live with them, they keep them, they know where they are. If they choose to have them go, they can actually affect them. So, if I haven't answered that question very well to his expectation, you can link us up and we talk in detail. Moyo, I'll be here to answer.
Thank you. It will be wonderful if we can link you with the people that are requesting for the links. I see especially Roderick is very excited about talking to you.
Okay, thanks.
So Gladys, I just want to thank you again for sharing your expertise with us tonight. It's been very, very interesting. We learned a lot, and we will be sharing this recording so that hopefully more and more people all over Africa can learn from your expertise and also implement it in their own systems where they work. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. You know, you're very, very busy, so it's really, your time is truly appreciated. Have a brilliant evening and please stay safe.